Hello, YouTube. I do have to apologize because I was actually gonna like do a weekly release pertaining my videos for every episode of House of the Dragon. So like we're talking about like okay, so when episode 1 releases, I was gonna do a video on that. Then when episode 2 releases, I'd do a video on that. All this was gonna go down live stream, but guess what? I never really followed through with it because live streaming is exhausting. So I'm doing something different this time around. Now, before we actually get into, so instead, I decided to do a season recap. You're probably wondering, okay, before I actually get into that, you're probably wondering what's in front of me. Now, if you've been following me for a while, actually, I just did a live stream on this not too long ago. This game is called Bubble Tank Frenzy. This video is not going to be about that. There's a completely separate video, which I'll link in the description if you're interested. So definitely check that out if you want to know what the hell is happening in front of me. But I digress, so let us get right into the topics. Okay, let me pull it up here. So let's talk about episode 1 of season 2 House of the... before I forget, I just have to mention there's going to be spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler heavy review, and I don't have a filter. So if you're concerned about spoilers or you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you watch it first. But if you don't plan on seeing it, or you just don't care about spoilers, and you want to watch anyway, well, I can't really stop you. So just know that you've been warned. There are going to be spoilers. Yeah. Alright, anyway. So, let's talk about Son for a Son. So Rhaenyra is basically absent for a majority of this episode. Like, you have to remember, this actually occurs right after, I think like a month after Lucerys gets eaten. Lucerys' dragon gets chomped into smithereens by Vhagar, Aemon's dragon. So all this takes place like a month later, but the show opens up at Winterfell. From my understanding in the books, Lucerys' older brother, Rhaenyra's older son, Jacaerys went to the Eyrie first, but the show obviously sped that up, and it starts at Winterfell, and there's really nothing that happened up there because he already apparently struck a deal with the Northmen. So it's just like an introduction and sort of like a member berry. It was a nice member berry. I did like the Starks in the original show Game of Thrones. So it was a welcome, throwback. But for those who, were anticipating we'd spend more time up there, and, there's a character named Sarah Snow. We never actually got to see Sarah Snow or any of the other characters or any of the other mentioned events. So I guess that's sort of a letdown for those who were hoping to spend more time up there. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Alright, so now we get back to Dragonstone, and Daemon wants to kill Vhagar with Rhaenys, but Rhaenys doesn't want to go along with it. Puts him in his place, and that really triggers him. So let's head over to King's Landing. So now in King's Landing, now I'll be honest with you, my favorite character in this season is Helaena Targaryen. Helaena, hands down. Fia Sabine, I think her name is Fia, the actress who plays Helaena. I'll say this: she deserves an Emmy. And I think she did a spectacular job. I hope to see her in more movies. And I liked her performance in Last Kingdom. I actually skipped I skipped to season 5 because she wasn't really in the other season. So yeah, she was even good in that one too. So yeah, definitely deserved an Emmy. She doesn't show up as much though, but when she does, it's super fascinating. So that's like a theme amongst all the episodes. Um, you know, yeah. So just worth mentioning. I'm getting slaughtered here. Okay, so that's point number one. So now let's talk about. Let's go to the next. Let's go to the next point. So then we got Allison, who is hooking up with Kristen Cole. I don't care about that, honestly. I mean, I guess that was like a fan theory in the previous season, but now the writers officially made it a thing. I don't care. Like, their relationship is like not really that interesting, honestly. I mean, if it is interesting to you, that's fine, but to me, it's really not, because it doesn't really matter. Well, it actually matters. I take that back. It actually matters a little bit, but it doesn't matter to me overall. I'll tell you when it matters, because it does matter in this episode. And this is actually why Kristen Cole gets a lot of hate. So she apparently, like, if you remember from the previous season, Aegon got crowned. And, it happened very abruptly, and at the very end of that, I think it was episode 9, at the very end of episode 9, Rhaenys escaped on Meleys and killed a bunch of small folk, so, you remember that scene? So that's the scene I'm talking about. But, so, but the thing that really triggered the war was Aemon killing Lucerys. Let's be real. Let's keep it real. Okay, so Aegon was abruptly crowned. It's interesting, he at first didn't want to be crowned, but then all of a sudden, when he was given the crown, and he saw the validation of the people, he was like, yeah, I want to be crowned. Like, he embraced it. Wasn't like that before in the previous season, but now all of a sudden he is, so I thought that was interesting. He wants to be a better father to his son, Jaehaerys. So he takes him pretty much everywhere, like to the small council meeting. So you can tell that he really cares about his son. He wants his son to be a proper ruler. Like, he cares about actually being a father. That seems to be really important. And we'll get to that in the next episode, because I do think that is, one of the things that drive his character. Everyone wanted to be, like, everyone was half expecting him to be like Joffrey. Which, not really. I mean, you kind of have to force yourself into thinking that he could be Joffrey, but he's really not, I didn't see it. Even I was like that too. I was like, could he do something that Joffrey could do? Make Joffrey look like a saint? Nope. Seems like he's just a normal guy who wanted to have fun. Saw him hanging out with his friends and getting drunk during the Blood and Cheese, which I'm going to get to shortly. Oh yeah, so the highlight of episode 1, A Son for the Sun. So eventually Rhaenyra comes back and, reconvenes with her small council and says, hey, I want Aemon Targaryen. And then Daemon, being the prick he is, decides to go and order a hit on Aemon. Gives cryptic instructions to Blood and Cheese, the 2 guards. Well, one guy's a guard, Blood. It's a big dude, very brutal. In the books, I think he got expelled from the Gold Cloaks, but in the show, apparently he's still there. The City Watch. And then Cheese is like a rat catcher. So if you remember what Helena said, I'm afraid of the rats, she probably foresaw Cheese and was, I'm almost willing to bet, definitely was talking about Cheese. Didn't anticipate Blood, though. Oh, yeah. Even, I don't think dragons can keep out assassins. But long story short, they were able to make it to the castle. They couldn't find Aemond, but they did find Helena, and a son for the son, a son for a son. Well, they couldn't go empty-handed, so they killed my poor Prince Jaehaerys. Now, the show made it, like, more mild. It was more gruesome in the books, more horrific, but they sort of reeled it in a bit. And, you know, people were complaining about that. And Helena walked in on Kristen and Allison, so I did say, like, I did sort of walk it back and say, like, that specific scene was important. Yeah, so it ends there. They killed a boy, she said. Alright, so let's go to the next episode. So, the episode takes place immediately after the blood and cheese incident. The entire castle is in disarray. Aegon rightfully is pissed. All the fingers point to Rhaenyra. And so Otto Hightower, who I didn't mention, but Rice Ifans, I think is his name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but he gives a really good performance here. And it's like the last episode he shows up in, interestingly enough. So he gives, and I'll tell you what, his plan is to, like, parade the dead, decapacitated baby Jaehaerys across the city in a funeral procession. The whole idea here is to show that Rhaenyra is a monster. And, it kind of works until Aegon, later on in the episode, kills all the rat catchers and turns public opinion against him. But it did ultimately end up working anyway, because it really didn't seem like that mattered much, so Otto Hightower decided to chastise Aegon for it, which, I mean, didn't really matter, because his plan worked, so I don't know why he did that. It's a terrible decision. So, that was cool. Okay, so what happens after that? So immediately after, so Helena was a delight in this episode. You know, in every episode she is, but in episode like this episode was a personal favorite of mine because Helena shows up the most. So yeah, like, I'm Team Helena. If you can't tell, I'm not Team Green. I'm not Team Black. I'm Team Helena. Okay, if that's a problem, then whatever. You gotta deal with it. Okay, so enough of that. Rhaenyra didn't order the hit. It was all Daemon. She just wanted Aemon, but Daemon, you know, gave cryptic instructions. The two fall out, so when Rhaenyra found out that it was Daemon who actually ordered the hit, through the stairs, if you actually watched, like, there was a bunch of staring in the small council. It was very awkward. So once Rhaenyra found out that it was actually Daemon, well, all bets were off. They had a fallout, and Daemon, and she ultimately resorted to, like, testing his loyalties. Like, do you actually accept me as king? And that, I guess, what caused him to storm off. He wanted to go. Okay, so I failed to mention this in the previous episode. He wanted to go to Harrenhal, and so he ended up doing that. Like, that's what he wanted to do, and so he just took off on his dragon. So, like, the thing with Daemon is whenever things go bad, things don't work out in his favor, he just runs away. I'm not anti-Daemon, but I just don't really like him this season. Although that dragon, him taking off on his dragon, that was cool. Okay, so Kristen Cole gets a lot of heat this episode because he was supposed to be protecting Helena, and he wasn't. So I can totally understand why people hate Kristen for that. Like, dude, what are you doing? You're not even doing your job. Like, so he sends the twins. So there's Eric and Arik. They end up dying at the end of this episode. But Eric and Arik, They end up fighting towards the end of the episode, and it was a pretty cool fight scene. It sort of signifies the Dance of the Dragons. Like, kin versus kin is a sin. Essentially, that's the whole idea of that. So it sort of it's a better version of Clegane Bowl. Let's go with that. And, you know, I thought they were good characters, and I kind of wish we got more episodes with them, but apparently not. It is what it is. Okay, so the Aemon brothel scene was a bit weird. Like, everyone was talking about nude Aemon. I don't really care about that, honestly. What I did find interesting was one of the Targaryen girls in there. She was revealed as, like, she was one of the dancers in the very beginning of that scene. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so the next scene that I thought was interesting was Jace and Baela. Rhaenyra doesn't want to sacrifice Jace. Like, she doesn't want to send Jace anywhere out of fear that Aemon could come after him and kill him. But Baela, she's more than okay with sending Baela on missions. So I thought that was a bit strange. What else happened in this episode? I did talk about the Clegane Bowl 2.0. Or Clegane Bowl before it even happened. But, so, yeah. I think I covered most of the things there. Alright, let's move on to the next one. The Burning Mill. So, the Brackens and Blackwoods, two families, who had a historical feud. Historic feud that nobody really knows the origins of. And so, we don't actually see the fight that happens at the prologue. But what we do see is the aftermath of it. And I thought what Rhaenys said in this line was really powerful and profound. What she said was like, well, she actually confirmed what I said previously, in the previous episode. Kin versus kin is sinful, and dragon versus dragon is destructive. So you gotta remember, like, dragons versus dragons are nuclear weapons in this world. And if you actually... And this is why, like, it's kind of silly rooting for Team Black or Team Green, because nobody actually wins in the end. So a war between kin could be, like, very devastating to the entire... It's a small folk who suffer. And Helena actually knew this. Like, if you actually, like, listen to some of her dialogues in the episode, she actually makes this point clear. She was in this episode, cryptically, like, Alicent seems more worried that Helena walked in on her, like, having an affair with, Kristen. Oh yeah, that's right. In the previous episode, Otto gets exiled from... He gets his ranks... He gets, exiled from the small council. Like, he's no longer hand of the king. Kristen's hand of the king. We also meet Gwaine Hightower, Alicent's brother, who seems to be like an annoyance to Kristen, seemingly. I do want to talk about that scene specifically. They're chased by Baela, and that really shuts up Gwaine Hightower, because he saw a dragon and is spooked. And now he's like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to Kristen now. I mean, you know that entire horse chase. It just shows you, like, how powerful dragons are. You see an enemy dragon, well, you don't want to get burned. The consequences are pretty dire. Alright, so, now that I've covered that. So that's all we see from Kristen. Let's see. So, Rhaenyra, you know, tries to... And she knows that, okay, well, the entire realm needs to be united against the Night King. So that's why she tries her hand in diplomacy. So she dresses up as a nun to try to convince Alicent to step down, in a reminiscence of their past friendship. Does it work? I mean, kinda. Not really. Well, it does sort of turn the wheels in Alicent's head. in the coming episodes. Okay, what else happens in this episode that's worthy of mention? Oh yeah, Aegon wants to go to war, but is told by everybody, hey, you idiot, you're gonna get killed. You're not really a fighter. Like, what are you doing, dude? Only Larys Strong, you know, the guy with the weird foot fetish, he was able to, like, convince Aegon that, yeah, like, everyone's right. You're gonna get yourself killed, dude. So only he was able to, like, talk sense into Aegon. Where are all my bubbles? Why is it count not going down? I'll have to fix that later. Sorry, I got distracted. So yeah, like, only Larys was able to talk him down. And for the rest of the episode, he really does nothing. He just goes to a brothel and, you know, humiliates Aemond. I'll be honest, I was hoping to see that one Targaryen Helena clone, I'm gonna call her Helena clone, come back, make another appearance, which I think she does later in the Dragon Seeds episode, which we'll get to shortly. But pretty sure she makes a comeback, but in reality, she doesn't. Not in this episode. But we get to meet Ulf. Oh yeah, I'm forgetting. We also meet Hugh Hammer, a Dragon Seed, and Ulf the White, another Dragon Seed. Hugh Hammer, in the first episode and second episode, he's a blacksmith who Aegon promises to help, but never actually does. And his daughter's, like, sick and dying, and the blockade is essentially making it worse. So he just holds out for false hope, as far as this part of the episode, anyway. And then you got Ulf the White, who just apparently claims to be Jaehaerys Targaryen's grandson. Like, he actually knows he's a bastard, but he keeps it low-key because dragon seeds are dangerous. They're pretty much like, if you say you're a dragon seed, you're pretty much like a threat to the throne, and, you know, you're asking to be killed, I guess. Okay, so that's that. Now, lost my train of thought here. Give me 1 sec. So, those are the 2 dragon seeds so far. Oh yeah, and where would I be if I don't mention Daemon heading to Harrenhal? The castle falls immediately. We do see a glimpse of Alice Rivers, played by Gail Rankin. Gives a really good performance. She doesn't really say anything in episode 3, but eventually at the end she says, "You'll die here." And this is actually when we start to see Daemon having visions. And yeah, this episode makes it interesting because we see Millie Alcock, young Rhaenyra, again. So that was cool. It's always good to... I mean, a lot of people have problems with these vision scenes, but they're kind of a nice throwback. You get to see old actors again, replay their roles. Because everyone wanted to see young Rhaenyra again. And now everyone's complaining. Like, what? You can't have it both ways, guys. Come on. Okay, enough of that. So, where do we go from here? Well, I think that's all I want to say about episode 3. If there's anything I'm missing, let me know in the comments. If there's anything I want to talk about... Okay, so I'll say this. If there's anything I'm missing, or if I skip something major that I didn't quite account for, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely do like a follow-up video. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go to the next one. Episode 4 takes the highlight of the season. It's a great dragon battle between Meleys and Rhaenys. This is actually where most of the action happens. We don't see Helena in this episode, unfortunately. But we do see, like, Aemond taking down Meleys. Well, actually what happens is, like, Aegon foolishly wants to prove himself. So he rides out with Sunfire, unexpectedly. Like, this was, like, not even planned. And so Aemon uses this as an opportunity to get rid of both Aegon and Meleys. Remember Kotar from Knights of the Old Republic? Kind of reminds me of that, because that's what Darth Malak does to Darth Revan. So taking on both of his enemies. It's kind of, I feel like whoever made this episode was a Kotar fan. So that if that's confirmed, that's cool. Kristen Cole doesn't quite die, unfortunately. Half his army gets burned, but they still end up winning because, like, Vhagar, you know, did a lot of damage. I'm getting my butt kicked. God damn. Okay, so where are we even going with this? I'm just saying a bunch of times. Hold on. So, yeah, I mean, the entire episode was like the dragon battle. Rhaenyra was absent because she was in King's Landing for most of that time, so we do see a significant time, a time increase, a time lapse, rather. So that was cool. So episode 5 is like, a lot of people didn't like this one, and the reason why they didn't like it was because it felt very slow. Jaehaerys goes to the Freys, doesn't threaten him or anything, he's just like, hey, well, can you side with me? And, you know, they agree, only if they get Harrenhal. Daemon has more Harrenhal visions. Oh yeah, in the previous episode, you actually get to be introduced to Alice Rivers more. I'll be honest with you, their dynamic was more like Geralt and Yennefer in The Witcher. I actually made this point a bunch of times. Corlys becomes Hand because Rhaenys dies. Rip Rhaenys. And yeah, that's... Helena was in this episode, but she's the only one who knows what Aemon actually did to Aegon, who remains bedridden. And I guess in this version, Sunfire dies, unfortunately. So we don't really see Sunfire, because Aegon is pretty much, like, useless. He just lies in bed. Understandably so, and the Valyrian steel armor he wears gets glued to his skin. I know, it's pretty gruesome stuff. Like, it's brutal stuff. Like, sucks to be Aegon. I know. So he doesn't, and you sort of see the parade of Meleys on the street. Alright, let's get to episode 6, unless somebody has... I'll make a follow-up video if I'm missing something major, or there's something that people want me to talk more about. But yeah, beyond that, let's get to episode 6. So Rhaenyra strengthens her position by appealing to the small folk. So essentially that's what causes the riot to occur. And I thought Helena and Alicent, like, I literally had an ulcer when I thought Helena was going to get killed. Thankfully she doesn't. Let's see, what else happens in this episode? Aemond actually, like, you know, you actually hear the Lannisters for the first time. And you actually see a lion. I've never seen a lion in Game of Thrones. Well, not until that one, anyway. So a lot of stuff happens in this episode that I'm, you know... That's sort of a nice throwback. And, you know, Aemon just becomes the supreme dictator. And this is actually where we see, Hugh Hammer's daughter die, unfortunately. Well, it's implied. It wasn't actually confirmed. Okay. So, episode 7 is actually where we are introduced to the new dragon riders, and I do think I see that mysterious dancer, Targaryen dragon seed, again. Let's just say it's like an Elden Ring boss fight. That's the best way I can actually describe this occurrence. do we see Helena in this? I don't think Helena's in this one. Oh yeah, in the previous episode, Sir Darkland tries to ride a dragon, but fails. Oh yeah, Rhaena is, like, this is not exclusively this episode, but in the other episodes, Rhaena, escapes. Well, no, Rhaena gets sent to, the Vale, and then ultimately Pentos, but she runs off and tries to claim Sheep Stealer. I don't know, that entire storyline wasn't really that interesting to me, so I'm not going to talk about it much. Okay. But what matters in episode 7 is that there's new dragon seeds. Jace doesn't seem to like it much because it sort of undermines his legitimacy. Like, hey, if they're all Targaryen bastards, that means they have more of a claim to the throne than I do. So I can understand his frustration. But this is war, dude. You need allies, so it's not a good time to make enemies, you know? Really. So that's, but he does that more in the next episode. Okay, in the next episode, we don't really get spend a lot of time with the Greens. Well, we do see Aemon, aside from Aemon, like, running away like a coward after realizing he's outmatched. So that's when he realizes he's really not that invincible. Okay. Now let's talk about episode 8. Well, now Aemon actually he burns a city down, just to prove that he's not a coward. You get to see more Tywin Lannister making an alliance with the Stepstones. And mud wrestles, which is weird. What else do we see here? Pretty much, like, Rhaenyra goes to Harrenhal to see what Daemon's up to. I sort of skip a lot of Daemon scenes because they're just not that interesting. Something the writer should have done. I'm kidding. Although it was nice seeing Millie and Patty again. But as far as, like, moving the story forward, it didn't really make sense. But I guess this is where Daemon realizes, well, I can't be king because there needs to be a United Targaryen, and he sees Rhaenyra on the throne. I guess that vision is the only thing he saw that confirms that Rhaenyra is the rightful queen. Just a vision, that's it. Kind of anticlimactic, but that's just me. Anyhow. They all bend knees, and that's the Harrenhal scene. Aemon tries to goad Helena into riding Dreamfire into battle, and she's the only one who's like, I don't want to fight. Because she actually knows, like, okay, if I fight, then who's gonna, you know, stand up for the White Walkers? Because she actually knows what's gonna happen. She actually foresees everything. This is why I think Helena's an interesting character. I don't know where I read this. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but what if Helena's the one controlling all the events, pulling all the strings? Did anyone ever consider that? No? Maybe not. Okay. So yeah, if I'm gonna have to rewatch. I'm gonna rewatch it again. It's definitely rewatchable. Season 8. I'm sorry, not season 8. Season 2. Season 2 is definitely rewatchable. And I'm definitely going to watch it again as a more holistic view. But I just want to hop on here to give my review of everything that just my opinion on it so far. So, yeah. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the like button. If this review seems like a bit boring, well, it's my first time, like, making a recorded segment, so hopefully my edits aren't that bad, but, you know, whatever. I just wanted to come on here and just tell you guys what I thought.